Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to use music theory to write some evil riffs. Let's get into it. So what is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. My name is Ray. I'm a guitar player here on YouTube, and I'm excited, man, because I get to teach you some stuff. We get to talk about some music theory, and we get to learn some stuff on the fretboard, okay? So let's just dive right in. I'm not going to waste any time with any sort of introductions or anything like that. Let's just get started. So I'm going to orientate you to the fretboard. We are in standard tuning, and everything that I'm going to be teaching predominantly is going to live around the key of A major, okay? So an A major scale is as follows. And everything I'm going to be teaching you in terms of how to write evil and or heavy riffs is going to be using intervals, and more specifically, simple intervals. Simple intervals deal with anything from your unison interval to your perfect octave, your octave above where you started. Anytime you go past the octave, you're now starting to deal with what's called compound intervals. We're not going to be talking about that today. Today is just going to be everything within one octave, and there's three intervals that are in and or around the major scale that really create an insane amount of dissonance, okay? So let's talk about the first interval that is literally inside the major scale, and it's the major seventh, okay? It sounds pretty sick, right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually just playing the root note of the scale, A, against the major seventh. It's called the major seventh because it's the seventh note of the major scale. And what's cool about the major seventh is it's actually called the leading tone in music. And it's called the leading tone because it has this insane amount of unresolvedness, if that's a word, and an insane amount of tension. And when you play it against your root note, it wants to lead to the octave. See that? But if you don't resolve it, if you just play it against your root note, creates a really kind of cool, heavy vibe. I use major sevenths all the time. I'm going to play a really cliche Ray riff that you guys have heard, you know, a million times, like some. And if you throw pinch harmonics in there, then it really becomes me. Let's take the same exact shape and let's go down to the first fret. Let's go 1, 2. It sounds gross, but in a good way. So basically, just to recap, a major seventh is literally just your octave, just back a half step. Major seventh, seventh note of the scale. Pretty cool, right? Now let's talk about two other intervals that aren't in A major or the major scale, or any major scale, for example, but are right next door to some notes, okay? Let's talk about the minor second. Now, the minor second is, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I certainly do, in fact, love it a lot. So now, I was playing the A major scale. The first two notes are your root note and your major second. A major second is just a whole step, right? Well, what's a minor second? Well, now we're playing the Jaws theme song. And also, too, arguably the most famous and or heaviest riff of all time is just a root note and a minor second, and that's Walk by Pantera. So, you know, you don't have to shred people's faces off to create an insane amount of heaviness or evilness. A minor second is just one of those that's just really, really heavy. Another way to think about a minor second, I'm going to change gears a little bit real quick. If we go 7, 8, for example, that's a minor second. Root note, starting position, minor second. B to C, half step, minor second. This isn't very heavy. Sounds kind of silly, right? Well, what happens if we take this type of idea but play them with separate strings and or play them against one another? So let's find this note. It's a C note on the 13th fret, B string. It's the same note. Now, what happens if we play 7, 13? it'll drive your parents crazy, kids. But you see, like, how all I'm doing is this idea, but with two different strings. When you play them together, it's a lot of fun. This sound is like all over metal music. You hear this in like a lot of Korn songs. Eyeless by Slipknot, the opening riff. Whatever by Godsmack. Like, I forget how it goes, but it's like or whatever, pun intended. But anyway, yeah, there's a minor second, just like that really like kind of horror theme, spooky theme. Minor seconds are used all over the place. And the last one I want to talk about within one octave is arguably the heaviest of them all. This is a very subjective answer about what's the heaviest interval, but basically it's not in the major scale, but it's right next door, in between two spots. It's in between the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth, and that is the tritone. So tritone is either a sharp fourth or a flat fifth, depending on how you want to think about it. But yeah, dude, it's just like the way I think about it and the way I teach it with my students that I teach online is you just take a power chord, flatten your fifth, flatten your second note of your power chord. Now we just have an insane amount of heaviness. So I'm going to change gears one final time real quick. So I just detuned real quick. I'm in drop D right now, just to prove a point, okay? Now, drop tunings are really convenient and really desirable for metal music because a power chord now just becomes one finger. For example, like 5, 5, 7, 7. Wherever you fret just one finger, now you're playing a power chord compared to a standard tuning where you have to use two fingers to fret a power chord, right? So, if a power chord, for example, etc., right? Well, we know the tritone is just a flat fifth. So, if a power chord is just root fifth, if we go to the first fret, for example, 1, 1, root fifth, that's a D sharp / E flat power chord, depending on how you want to look at it. Well, what happens when you flatten your fifth and you go 1 open? That is like every metalcore breakdown ever. That is every August Burns Red song, every Asking Alexandria song, Parkway Drive, you name it, man. In metalcore, like in the mid to late 2000s, this was your bread and butter. And it gives that face, that oh my god, it's so heavy face, you know what I mean? So the tritone, like I said, arguably the most evil of them all. It's just creates an insane amount of just heaviness. So ladies and gentlemen, those are just 3 of the intervals that are within one octave, 3 simple intervals that you can use when you're writing riffs and when you're trying to come up with something that's a little bit heavy. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, an interval is just a space between 2 notes. Whenever you play one note against another or arpeggiate them, you're creating distance, you're creating a space, you're creating a gap, you're creating a relationship with those 2 notes. And this all has to deal with, like, some notes sound good together and some notes sound bad together. And more often than not, when they sound bad, that is kind of a good thing for a metal player because it creates that level of tension, eeriness, and heaviness, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and I just hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. So study your music theory, practice, and thanks so much for hanging out, okay? So I'm going to get out of here. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay metal. I'll see you guys next time. Later.